Well, speaking of Richard Childress Racing and Dale Earnhardt, Kelly Earnhardt has brokered a lot of deals for Dale Jr., but she helped put you in that car.
Well, kind of, sort of. We were, I had accomplished what I wanted to accomplish with Ernie. We got him back to victory lane.
Mm-hmm.
We won Loudon in July of '96 and came back about a month later and won September Richmond race. And I never will forget walking into the media center at Loudon and going, ladies and gentlemen of the press, mission complete. He's back and he's won a race. And a lot of this was self-inflicted. As I'm the world's worst, even today, I won't say no. If I can connect the dots to make something work, I will work to make it work. Whether it's something to do with my job, something not to do with my job, I just don't like telling people no. I don't want to be told no, and I work hard not to tell people no. Sometimes, if it's even to my own destruction. And when we finally decided to do this second deal, Robert kind of shoved the thing on my shoulders. He says, now you're still, the 28's your baby, but I need you to put this second deal together. I want you to kind of be, there really wasn't competition director title, but he said, I kind of want you to be the team manager. Okay, I can do that. And I mean, Robert took great care of me monetarily my whole time I was with him. So, I got everybody hired for the '88 car, and got Todd Parrott hired and all of the guys, and started getting tractor and trailers ordered and cars ordered and all the things. And we were having to kind of expedite this now because now Ernie's going to run 2 or 3 races before the '95 season's over. But I think because of everything that I had been through mentally, '93, '94, '95, '96. Throw in '92. Basically, my whole time at Robert Yates Racing, everything nobody's fault, but just what the cards that we and I were dealt. And then I think to take on the task of putting that second deal together and work night and day, worked half days on Thanksgiving, all day Christmas Eve, all day New Year's Eve. I think we did at least take Christmas Day off. I just getting wore out, just mentally and physically wore out. Got to where when I woke up, I didn't want to hit the floor and drive down to Dwell Street. Just wore out.
Yeah.
Mainly mentally. And I guess about the time that I'm thinking about this, we're at Rockingham in the fall of '95. Saturday afternoon, final practice is over, and they're closing the garage.
'95 or '96?
Into 96.
Okay, all right.
Into '96. So they're closing the garage, and we'd had a great season. '88 had won 4 races, won the Daytona 500, won the Brickyard, won the Busch Clash. The first race it hit the racetrack. We'd won a couple of races with the 28. The '88 been in the championship hunt, and we'd finished well inside the top 10. Unbelievable year. Just wore out. And we were at Rockingham, and the garage was closed, and they always had to come run the 28 group out. I was always the last one to leave, just do one more thing.
Yeah.
And Gary Nelson came over, and he personally, which he was used to with us, pulled the door down and said, garage is closed, guys. And him and I were kind of walking out together, and he says, what are you going to do next year? And I went, I don't know, Gary. Why do you ask? He said, I don't need to get involved in this. He said, I'm the series director. I said, well, you asked that for a reason. He said, I just know there's a group in here really wants to get you to come be the crew chief. I said, well, who? He said, I can't get involved. I said, come on, Gary. Don't.
You done started.
You started it. I didn't.
Yeah.
All you were doing was running me out of the garage.
Yeah.
He said, I know that 3 bunch has really interested you because Andy had left the end of '95, and David Smith and Bobby Hutchins kind of had tag teamed at '96, and they'd won a couple of races, but I think they knew that was short term. And so anyhow, I didn't think much about it, and I went back to the motorhome. That was our first year that Linda and I had a motorhome. And I said, man, I had the weirdest conversation with Gary Nelson. She says, well, what do you think? I said, I don't know. I have no idea. So nothing else was said. So the following week was the World Series. And Linda, my wife, for our anniversary, which our anniversary is October 29th, she had gotten us 2 tickets to a World Series game down in Atlanta.
Oh,
I was
wow.
a huge Braves
Cool.
fan.
Yeah.
So I don't know how she got them, where she got them, whatever. But so we go and we're kind of in left field, out in the outfield. And we go to sit down, and there's 2 seats beside us over here. And, you know, finally 2 people walk up, and it's Kelly Earnhardt and her friend. This is weird.
Yeah.
So anyhow, we spoke and talked a little bit. I didn't know Kelly that well. I mean, hello, just speaking, how you doing in this cool World Series game? Well, I look over there about halfway through the game, and now we are into the era where people are starting to get cell phones. And I'm looking over there, and she's on her cell phone. And I thought to myself, who the hell comes to a World Series game and talks on her cell phone?
Everybody.
So we're in the middle of an inning, and she taps me on the shoulder, and she says, I said, I want you at a World Series game. Talk to me. Hey, Earnhardt, you going to do this damn deal or not? It's like, what deal? I don't know what deal you're talking about. And I'm at a World Series game. So anyhow, they did reach out to me the following week, and I met with Richard in Atlanta, went out to his motorhome on Saturday, kind of during the, whether it was the ARCA, Xfinity, I don't know what was running back then. And we talked, and, you know, we didn't get too serious. And then the following week is when we went to Japan. And I felt like a wrestling tag team. It was almost embarrassed because all the teams are kind of on the same flight, going over from, I think we were flying from Atlanta to Tokyo.
Yeah.
And Linda and I are up in business class, and here comes 3 member after the other. And they sit down. Linda had wandered back mixing and mingling, and they kept sitting one at a time. You think you're going to do this deal? It's like, guys, there's Robert Yates right over there. No, stop. And so, you know, and Earnhardt wore me out in Japan the whole time we were over there. And finally, Richard got in touch with me when we got back from Japan. And I met him over at his condo at Charlotte Motor Speedway the day after Thanksgiving on Friday. I never went to Welcome, North Carolina. I had already taken the job and done before I ever went to Welcome. But I got to say, the hardest thing was telling Robert and Ernie that I was leaving. They didn't accept it very well at all. I didn't expect them to. My feelings probably would have been hurt had they been delighted about it. But it was definitely a tough decision, but it's one I needed to do. Not because of it being Dale and the 3-car, I just needed a fresh start without everything that had happened over the last 4 or 5 years.
You go to the 1997 Daytona 500. Dale's tried, never won the thing. So you've got a lot on your mind. It's your first race as his crew chief. And race morning, you have to deal with a couple of wayward crew members.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of always, as a crew chief, tried to walk that tightrope of being cordial and treating the guys like I wanted to be treated, but also make sure I kept separation where I did my job.
Yeah.
Because I knew ultimately that no matter who screwed up or what happened or what went wrong, that I was the guy responsible, that my office was the one next to the end of the hall. Yeah, the owner was at the end of the hall. Mine was the one next to him. And we had a lot of meetings before going to Daytona, and I kind of laid out my expectations to the road crew and to the pit crew. I said, I'm not the guy that's going to go beating on everybody's hotel room to see if you're in, but I said, I'm just asking you to be smart. And I said, you know, this is our first race as a team like we are, and we know how well our driver runs there. We've had some good testing during the off season. Let's don't let a good time one night stand in the way of that. And Richard was always adamant about flying the pit crew in the day before, just from a standpoint, he wanted to make sure we didn't have any glitches in air travel or whatever. And so some of the pit crew was already there because they worked on the car, but they flew down Thursday for the duel, flew back after the duel. We'd won the duel, and then they flew back Saturday afternoon. And so they don't even really come to the track on Saturday. So Sunday morning, I don't know, the garage opened about 6 o'clock, and we're uncovering the car, and the guys are starting to go through the race checklist, what we hadn't gotten done the day before, and the pit crew's there, and I just kind of kept looking around, and finally I asked, I think Jerry Haley, one of our pit crew guys, I said, where? I can't even remember one of the guys' names, but one of them was Gene Dehart, our tire changer. So where is Gene and so? And he had this look on his face like the cat that swallowed a canary. I said, no, where are they at? He just went, I said, are they not here? He said, Larry, we called and we beat and banged on their door, and we finally had to leave because we were running late. So I said, they're not even here. He said, no. I said, you have no idea where they're at. He said, we don't. He said, we beat on their door. We called their room. We have no idea where they're at. So, okay, let me figure out how to deal with this now. And start taking care of some stuff I needed to take with the car. And sure enough, here they come about an hour and a half late. And walking in like nothing was wrong. And that pissed me off as much as anything. If you're going to do this, at least be a little bit humble.
Yeah.
And what you guys up to? Well, we overslept. Our alarm didn't go off. I said, so you didn't hear the beating on the door. You didn't hear the phone ringing. And Rick, they just wrecked with alcohol. I mean, I could smell them 10 feet away. And I said, you two need to go up in the lounge and don't do nothing. Just go up there and sit down. Well, we need to start. I said, no, don't worry about the pits. Go up there in the lounge and sit down. So I handled a few other things, and I went over to Richard's motorhome, and Steve Ramey that drove us, I said, do you think Richard's up? He said, yeah, he's up. He said he actually stayed over at Spruce Creek, and he just got here a little bit ago. I think he's up in there having breakfast. So I knocked on the door, went up in there, and he said, I didn't even say nothing. He says, what's the matter? I said, I got a bad situation, Richard. And I told him. He says, well, what do you want to do? I said, they're not going to change. They're not going to pit the car today. And he says, Larry, what are you going to do? I said, we know we've got backups. And I said, Richard, if I don't drop this hammer now, this is training puppies from my standpoint. I said, because you and I both know I was not welcomed with complete open arms from everybody. There was a lot of them that did, but there was a lot of them that didn't. And I said, if I let this go, I'll have no control. And he says, okay, I stand behind you. But he said, I just want you to double, triple think this out of what you're doing here.
And this isn't Pocono in July. This is the Daytona 500.
And knowing we had a car that could win the race. But we used our two backups, and Rick, we had the most up and down day on pit road that you could ever have. We'd have one good stop and two bad stops. And Dale never said a word. And he'd work his way back to the frickin' front. And thank God, with about 20, 25 laps to go, we didn't have to make any more pit stops. And he'd found his way to the front. And with about 20 to go, I looked at Richard and I says, what do you think? He went, been here way too many times.
Caution.
With about 11 to go, I knew what he was talking about. We were barrel rolling down the back straightaway. You know, the car had picked up, I think he had like caved one of the fenders in a little bit, and the car in clean air just didn't drive very good. It pushed, and it picked up a push up off turn 2, and Gordon got into our left rear. Almost the same thing that happened with Darrell, with Davey at Pocono, got in that left rear, and the thing just started barrel rolling, not to the extent that Davies did. And it wasn't funny. I look back now and it was comical. It was hilarious because I'm watching the monitor and I see this car barrel roll down the back straightaway.
Yeah.
And I see Dale get out. And so I start walking down pit road. You had to walk all the way down to the entrance before you turn in the garage area and to go over there to the infield care center, which I knew he was okay. I saw him walk to the ambulance. I saw him walk around the car and I saw him walk to the ambulance. But just about the time, because we were pitting almost at the opposite far end. About the time I got to turn in the garage, I saw something black go by and I went, no. It couldn't be.
Well, yeah, it could.
And I looked down pit road, and there the 3 cars sat in the pits. And there's nobody there. We all have left the pits. So we sprinted back down there and duct taped and bale wired and
rip sheet
whatever
metal.
we could do, shoelaces, whatever it took, because we just wanted to finish this race. And we finished it. And the one thing that was cool about finishing that race, 97 was a very trying year because we didn't win a race. But one thing I'm very proud of, I think we did end up finishing 4th or 5th in the points. We had no DNFs that year. We finished every single race that year. And I always was a big stickler, and I know Richard Childress was too, about finishing races.
You mentioned the fact that you went winless in 1997. Being Dale Earnhardt's crew chief, of all people, that came with a lot of expectations. And I would say that those expectations weighed pretty heavy the longer you went in the 97 season.
The expectations on no one's part was any greater than my own.
Right.
I left Robert Yates Racing, where I had won a ton of races with 3 different drivers. And I'm thinking, if I can take what I know to probably what we all look at as the greatest race car driver ever to grip a steering wheel, holy smoly, this will be a snowball going down a hill that'll never stop. It won't be a matter if we can get his 8th championship. It'll be a matter how many more we can get. His expectations were high. We all had them. And, there's a lot said about Dale and I didn't get along, and that's probably way away from the truth. We actually got along quite well, but we just couldn't connect with this race car. And I think our personalities were so different. As you probably know, observing me for all these years, I'm a little bit high-strung and up on the chip. And Dale, he's laid back when he was in the middle of 8 wide. And that probably, those 2 personalities were probably not working in our favor. But yeah, 97, outside of all the ancillary things that I had to endure throughout my years as a crew chief, with Davey getting killed and Ernie getting hurt, and toughest year I've ever had in my life.
1997?
Yes.
No kidding.
Just,
wow.
I go to the 3 car and we go winless. We go winless. How in the world you could put a monkey working with Dale Earnhardt and he could at least win one freaking race, and we can't even win a race. It got tough. I'm telling you, it got tough because I was starting to get accusations from fans about sabotaging Dale's career. I got accusations about Ford sending me over there to sabotage Chevrolet. You have no idea. I mean, I didn't dare leave that racetrack with a uniform top on. I left there in generic clothes. The irony is...
And this was before social media.
Oh, yeah. This was just mail coming. And,
yeah.
The irony, by the end of 97, I thought I was going to have to hire a full-time bodyguard. Isn't it amazing?
Seriously.
Isn't it amazing? February 17th it was, I think.
You're a rock star.
I could have run for president and got votes. I could have absolutely got votes for the Republican nomination. But I do want to, because I want to make sure and tie this in. So, finally, we just running horrible. Just horrible. We won the Daytona 500. Hell, we went to Rockingham, had to use a provisional to start the race. And it didn't get any better. I think we did go to Talladega and finish second, but it's Talladega. You're supposed to run good there with Dale. And finally, We were a dumpster fire. The 31 was a dumpster fire. And there was probably the straw that broke the camel's back. Again, I was not intimidated by Dale. I respected him, but I was not intimidated by him. We go to Richmond, the spring race, and we qualified probably somewhere around 35th or 36th out of the 40-something cars that's there. And I walk up in the hauler, this, again, 98, and after qualifying, Dale, what'd it do? Oh, I don't know, just wasn't comfortable. And I slammed that door, and he had his little TV going, and I punched the off button. I said, look, I came here to help you win races. Yeah, I came here to win races, but I came here to help you. You've got to decide what you want to do with your career, and I'll figure out whether I want to ride along anymore or not. I cannot do this. Anyhow, I walked out of that lounge, and I said, well, I probably shouldn't have said that, but you know what? I meant it. I just working my guts out, driving myself nuts, kicking my dog when I go home, screaming at my wife, and I wanted to, he's got to figure it out. So Saturday night, the race, the 31 and the 3 battled their guts out all night long for about 19th or 20th, side by side. And so we stayed in Richmond, and the motorhome had Linda and the kids with me on Saturday night. And Sunday morning, we just had left the racetrack, and Richard called. He said, what are you doing? I said, just leaving the racetrack. He said, what time you think you might be down near the shop area? And I told him, I don't know, 3 hours. He said, can you come here? He said, I know Linda and the kids with you, but he said, I'll give you a car to drive home. They can just drop you off. And I said, yeah. I mean, I was driving there, expected to get fired. No other thought on my mind. You know, I know who's going to come out on the short end this time. It's not going to be Dale.
Yeah.
So I get there. Dale's not there, but Kevin Hamlin and Mike Skinner's there. It's like, this is going to be a weird meeting. You know, what is this? So we go in Richard's office, and I mean, he didn't beat around the bush. He said, guys, I've been thinking about it for a few weeks. He said, last night pretty much gave me my answer. He said, I'm gonna make some changes. And he says, I've got 2 good race car drivers. I know Dale Earnhardt can drive a race car, and Mike, I know you can drive a race car. He said, I know I got 2 damn good crew chiefs. No doubt in my mind. Kevin, you're smart, you work hard. Larry, you've won races. He said, I just think I got my guys mixed wrong. And it's funny because I had worked with Mike at some tests before, and we did really seem to click. I probably talked to Mike Skinner more about, I know I did, about our race car than I did Dale, you know, when I was with the 3 car.
Yeah.
And, you know, I didn't really know what to say. You know, in my heart, I knew this was probably the thing that needed to happen. And I told Richard, I need to go home and think about it. And he says, well, I respect that, but he said, I just want you to know this is not an option. This is what I'm going to do. And you have to decide if you're okay with it. He said, I'm not asking you, will you take the 31? I'm telling you, I'm swapping my 2 crew chiefs. And I mean, he was cordial about it. So I drove home and talked to Linda about it. And I said, I don't know if I want to do that. I didn't leave, nothing against Mike.
Right. Yeah.
Nothing against the 31.
Yeah.
I didn't leave Robert Yates Racing to go to work for the Lowe's 31's car with Mike Skinner. It's just not what I did. I left to go to work with Dale Earnhardt in that 3 car. And my wife's the one that got me straight. She says, what happens if you go over there and make Mike Skinner a winner, help make him a winner? How is winning a race or 2 or whatever with Dale going to mean more, or winning a race or 2 with Mike Skinner, who's never won a Cup race before? She said, I'm not telling you. And my wife, we've been married over 36 years, and she has never told me the words "you need to" has never come out of her mouth. She's there as a sounding board as I was using her that night. But you know what? I went to bed and I said, you know what? Damn, I'm going to do this. I'm gonna live with it. And there was no question. Both teams, boom, better right out of the box. We went to Loudon a couple, 3 weeks after the swap, and probably could have won the race with Mike. I think we ended up finishing third or fourth. And even though, and that's a little bit of a void, you know, I worked from the spring of '98 until my final race in 2000 with Mike, and never won a race. Won Motegi, which was actually pretty darn cool. I would have never believed that would have been my last trip to Victory Lane, but it was very cool, something that I'll always treasure, going over there and winning the last race in Japan. Probably a race that haunts me even today is Atlanta, the spring of 2000. We had led that thing. I think we ended up leading 200-something laps that day with Mike. And caution came out fairly late. I want to say 25, 30 laps to go. Everybody pitted. We won the battle off pit road. And when we went back racing, and I'll just use hypothetical numbers to give you the point of the story, they went back racing, and we were running probably 2940s, and the cars behind us was running 2980s and 90s, just driving away.
Wow.
And with about 13, 14 laps to go, that motor blew up from turn 4 to turn 2, just scattered. And that one still haunts me today. That one haunts me, and the 94 Brickyard with Ernie, where we cut the tire down with a handful of laps to go. You always remember the ones you won, but I'm telling you, there's things about ones that you didn't win that still haunt you. But I don't live in any regrets. I'll treasure the time that I got to work for Richard Childress. I'll treasure being able to say that I was Dale Earnhardt's crew chief, and that the only time that man ever won the Daytona 500 that I was his crew chief. I don't think it makes me anything special. It's like I tell people all the time. People today say, "You're the man. You're the man got him that 500." No. I just happened to be that guy that was in place when he didn't blow up, didn't have the flat tire in the last corner of the last lap, didn't run out of gas, didn't hit a seagull in the back stretch. I just happened to be that guy when everything fell in place. But it is flattering to know that. But I don't live in any regretful world. But if I do look back on my career today, I almost wished I'd have just rode it out at Robert Yates Racing. I think a lot of things would have been different. I don't know if I'd ever seen the Fox broadcast booth.
No kidding.
I don't know if where Robert Yates Racing would be. You know, they finally gave it up in, 2004, 2005, which was a long time after. Yeah. But I don't have any regrets. Richard Childress was one of the great guy to work for, and to know I worked with Dale and worked with Mike. But if I look back, and if I'm not saying if I had a do-over,
right? Yeah,
but that might be one thing I just would have evaluated a little harder and a little longer, and said, you know, I just need a breather. Let's get through the off season, and let's pick up and try this again.
That is a perfect lead-in to my next question. You told me a great story about you and Dale waiting on your daughters together and kind of coming to terms about your time together. Share that, if you would.
Yeah, it's one of those things that didn't make me feel any better about what I had went through with Dale for basically, call it a year and a half. It gave me understanding. You know, during that year and a half that I worked with Dale, if I had a dollar bill for every time he described the race car as just not comfortable, I'd be a rich man. It wasn't that it's loose in, tight off, tight in the middle, loose off, not comfortable. And I never could figure out, what does that mean? What does not comfortable mean? And I would just throw stuff at it, like throwing darts.
Yeah,
Okay, let's
yeah.
try this. Well, maybe he means this. Let's throw this. And that's one reason we couldn't get anywhere. We couldn't get any better. It's not comfortable. Okay, well, let's try a set of shocks. See if that makes it more comfortable. So again, always puzzled by that. Leave Robert Yates Racing and go over there with the greatest race car driver and can't even win a race. Finally won the 500, but couldn't win a race at a non-Daytona or Talladega. Really never even came close. So Dale had the surgery finally that I think Dr. Branch and Teresa
The back.
and Richard,
Yeah.
Where he got hurt at Talladega, finally had that surgery during the off season between 99 and 2000. And he actually came out of the box pretty good in 2000. I could see it in his eyes. I could see it in the way he drove the race car, even though I was with the 31. This guy's on the money this year. His team can win this championship. And it was May Charlotte week in 2000. Racetrack had closed early, and both of our girls went to school together, Taylor and Brooke. They went to Cannon. And they were in the same grade, and they had been on like a 3 or 4 day field trip. And Linda had asked me when I left the racetrack, she said, Brooke, they're supposed to be back at the school the X time. What time are you leaving the racetrack? I said, that'll be perfect. I said, I'll leave the racetrack and should be there 15, 20 minutes before she gets back. Well, lo and behold, Linda calls me and says, well, the bus is about 2 hours late. It's like, well, I'm not driving all the way back to Mooresville
Right.
and then turn around and go back.
Yeah.
I'll just sit here. Might even take me a nap. Well, I'm sitting there and I looked across. There's Dale sitting there.
Yeah.
And he had we almost noticed each other simultaneously. He went. So I got out, went over and sat in his truck, and we just small talk. He asked me about the race car. We had actually qualified pretty good with Mike. I think we'd qualified inside the top 5. And I think Dale had another one of his barely top 20 qualifying performances. But he finally said, I want to share something with you, Larry. And I said, what is that, Dale? He said, you and I never had a good opportunity with each other. And I said, what do you mean by that? He said, you know how many times you just would absolutely just walk off from me because I couldn't tell you what the race car was doing, and I'd use the word, it's just not comfortable. He said, I was not lying. I was not comfortable. I couldn't feel my race car. I hurt. I ached. And he said, I never believed it until I just had this surgery back during the off season. And he said, you and I never got the right chance together. And he says, I hate it. And I said, I hate it too, Dale. I said, because when I came to you, my expectations were out the roof. I said, I didn't expect to go win every race, but I expected to be a contender week in and week out and get you that 8th championship, or try to help get you that 8th championship. And I said, we just never worked. He said, well, you just never had a chance. And, I look back and I look at that 97 Southern 500 where he passed out under the pace laps. And there were just so many things that was telling me something's not right here. Just a guy that's won all these races and 7 championships, can't even tell you what his race car's doing. Passing out under the pace laps at Darlington. Knew it wasn't right, but, you did the best you could. But I got out of that truck when the girls finally got back. It didn't make me feel any better, but at least I get it a little bit now. I mean, that didn't make me where I didn't do anything wrong that year and a half. It was all on Dale's shoulders.
Yeah.
That'd be very unfair. But it made me understand why he couldn't tell me what his race car was doing and why he always used the phrase, it just wasn't comfortable.
Wow. RC got pretty peeved when you told him that you were going to go do TV. And that conversation was about 20 years ago. You've been doing TV full time for 19 years.
I have, yeah.
Do you miss getting your hands dirty in the garage?
People ask me that all the time, and absolutely.
Yeah.
You don't do something for 20 years, 18 years as a crew chief, and no matter after 1 year, 5 years, or 20 years, not miss it. You know, the good thing is for a number of years, right here in this shop we're sitting at, being able to work with Brandon and his little racing career, I think that helped fill a little bit of the competition void along the way. But, yeah, I still miss it today. Probably the biggest thing I miss, Rick, and I have not said this a lot because I want to be careful how I say it, but it's the gospel. As a crew chief for 18 years, I never needed anybody to say, that's good or that's bad. You had measuring sticks every single lap you made. Mm-hmm. You had a stopwatch. You had qualifying results. You had practice results. You had race results. End of the year, you had points results. You didn't need the owner or the driver or a sponsor to say, man, you're doing good. Man, you're doing bad. I didn't care if they thought we were doing good or bad or not. We've got the measuring stick right here.
Yeah.
I guess now, after doing the TV for 20 years, it's still puzzling sometimes. Was that good or was that bad? You don't have that measuring stick.
Yeah.
And I always felt secure as a crew chief as long as I did my job and performed. In this business, you're only secure as long as somebody believes you're still doing good. If a TV executive decides he wants to twist a knob a half a turn or pull a lever a different direction and try somebody different, it doesn't matter what you've done. You're at the mercy. And I mean, I still love it. I love every single day of what I do, but it's still one of the, even after doing it for 20 years, one of the frustrating things about this industry because of where I came from is I had measuring sticks every day. Mm-hmm. Didn't need anybody to tell me nothing. And that as long as you worked hard and performed and won races and did what you were supposed to do, you knew that you were secure. And that's not the way it is in the TV broadcast industry.
Cool. Anything else? You didn't tell the Captain Jack story.
Have I told you that?
Well, yeah, you told me that for the Dale versus Daytona book. Yeah.
Yeah. It was about a career-ending moment. We were about 5 seconds away from a career-ending moment in NASCAR. When I went to work for RCR, and Richard and I had conversations along the way about the program over there. He said, one thing I need to tell you is Bill France Jr., him and Dale are tight, which I knew that. He said, Bill actually has a radio, and periodically, he said, I'm talking very unfrequent, not very often. He will talk to Dale on the radio. It'll be under caution, it'll never interfere with anything you're doing.
Yeah.
But they just have that relationship. Okay, whatever, no big deal. I never heard Captain Jack in 1997. We didn't have a lot to talk about. So we get to 1998, and I totally forgot about it. And we get to 1998, and we're late in that 500, and that caution had come out, and I made the call for 2 tires, as almost everybody else did, with, 25 to go. We won the race off pit road. We're waiting on the 1 to go. They give the 1 to go, and they're realigning, and all of a sudden I heard this voice. Hey, Sunday Money, this is Captain Jack. Who in the hell is this? Who in the hell is Captain Jack? It hadn't registered because this had been over a year.
Well, you'd had your radio stolen in the 92. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
So, but it's like, I don't know who Captain Jack is, but this man's fixing to get the cussing of his life. And I looked, and Richard going, he's pointing to the NASCAR tower. I went, Oh, Captain Jack, okay. And all he said was, hey, Sunday Money, this is Captain Jack. Don't you think it's time? They always use fishing lingo. Don't you think it's time for you to go snag the big one? And that was it. He said, I'm going to do all I can, Captain Jack. And
That was it. Your radio transmissions weren't recorded, were they?
I hope not. I hope not.
At least for that race. At least for that race.
I hope not.
Wow.
You know, I talked about the tough decision, Rick, to leave Kenny Bernstein and go to Roberts. I talked about the tough decision, very tough decision, to leave Robert and go to RCR. They were watershed moments in my crew chief career, obviously. But I never had quite been faced with a fork in the road to make the decision to go do the broadcast work. You know, from 1995 through 2000, I did some broadcast work for what was then TNN, TNT, off weekends. Again, we had a few more back then. I'd go do a truck race or I'd go do an Xfinity Series race. There were even some weekends, it was through Patty Wheeler's company, World Sports, that my deal with them was if they came to me about an hour and a half before the race on Saturday and I felt comfortable walking away and going and doing pit road or even doing the booth, that I would do it. But if they came to me and I said, look, we're not running well, I'm not doing it, that was our agreement. So I did maybe from 95 through 2000, even went to Homestead and did a couple of races for CBS. They had Xfinity in Homestead and in trucks in Vegas, and they didn't have enough announcers. I'd do 8 or 10 a year. I enjoyed it. You made a little bit of money. I never saw myself doing it as a living. I mean, I figured the day that they put me 6 feet under, I'd be going 4 tires next stop. I just never visualized it. It never was a thought. I didn't know how long I would keep doing it part-time. But, you know, they signed the new TV contract actually the week of Homestead of 1999. Mm-hmm. And because when we got to Homestead is when we heard the announcement, you know, that NBC and Turner had bought the second half. Fox was going to do the first half, starting in 01. So we go run the race, and we go, you know, to New York for the banquet and come back. And mid-December, wasn't quite the holidays. And I was in the body shop working with our guy on one of our Daytona cars, covered in Bondo dust from head to toe. And they paged me to the phone, and right outside the body shop was a phone on the wall. I picked it up, and it was an Australian-speaking gentleman. He introduced himself as David Hill, the chairman of Fox Sports. And he says, I know it's early. We're well over a year out. As you probably know, we've signed the TV package for 2001. We've watched some tapes of stuff you've done. As you may or may not already even know, we've already hired Darrell Waltrip as our driver analyst. We have no idea who our play-by-play guy is going to be, but we would at least like to have some conversations with you about maybe our crew chief analyst. I didn't even know what to say. I didn't know whether to say yeah, no, okay, maybe. He said, I realize I've probably just dropped a bomb on you, but he said, you know, let's talk after the holidays. So I talked to Linda about it, and, you know, I have no idea. And my biggest problem, I just had signed a 3-year deal with RCR that the first year was 2000, so I still had 2 more years. And I'd been a little aggressive with Richard. I said, look, you've stuck me with this cat named Mike Skinner, you're going to damn pay me some money.
Yeah.
So as the spring came on, Fox started calling a little bit more. And finally they said, look, we got an idea. During the Xfinity Series race, we're going to set up a little makeshift booth and do 100 laps of the Xfinity Series race. He said, we got some other people we're going to look at. We're not just looking at you. He said, but why don't you come do 30 or 40 laps with DW up there? And actually, Mike Joyce still was not in the picture. It was Rick Allen that they were using for this audition. So I snuck around and went to the motorhome and changed clothes and went up there and did 30 or 40 laps with Darrell, and it felt, in fact, the irony, well, that's getting a little ahead of myself, so I won't go there yet. But anyhow, it felt good, good chemistry. Darrell and I really never had worked with each other. Obviously, we had some spirited moments as competitors.
You hadn't worked with each other.
Yeah.
Against each other, maybe.
That happens, and then Fox calls me, and they kind of make me an offer. And the good news is, it was really pretty much the same money that I was making as a crew chief, which only at the end of the day, that's good. I can slide that aside and not let that be an element, that they're offering me 2 times what I'm making or 2 times less what I'm making. It's really tit for tat. In fact, if I took it, I was actually going to be leaving a little bit on the table, because no longer was I going to get a courtesy car to drive. No longer was I going to get a bonus for winning a race or sitting on a pole. So there was a little bit that I would be leaving to do this deal. The good news also is they were only offered me a 2-year deal, 2 years with a 2-year option.
Fox.
So Fox was.
Okay.
So I'm thinking, okay, if I go and do this deal and they don't like me or I don't like them, I can come back and do this. In the month of June, finally, July comes and Fox is getting a little bit. They had made the decision they wanted to make me the offer, that I was their number 1 choice, but they needed an answer. And I kept putting them off. And the hours that my wife and I spent at our kitchen table hashing this over is endless, no telling. And so anyhow, I finally made a decision I wanted to do it. But I knew how I had this little bit of a hurdle called a contract with RCR.
Yeah.
So late August, we had the off week before Indy, and I really wanted to get this resolved before Indy. So I called Sandra, his personal assistant. I said, "Where's Richard?" She said, "Larry, he's in Montana this week." I said, "When's he coming back?" She said, "He'll be back over the weekend, for Indy next week." I said, "Well, look, make a big note on your desk about Larry Mack as early as possible next week. I need to meet with Richard." So sure enough, he gets back, and she paged me on Monday or Tuesday and said, "Hey, Richard's up here if you want to come up here and chat with him." So I go up there, and Richard's office was a little intimidating. There was no racing hardware in it. It was wild sheep and
Bears
buffaloes and lions and bears.
Tigers.
And so it's a little intimidating anyhow. So I go in, I sit down, and I didn't go into no small talk. I laid it on the table. And when I finished telling him my spiel, his face got about as red as an apple, and the veins started popping out the side of his neck. And I went, "Holy crap, what have I done? This man's going to kill me." He finally kind of settled down. He said, No. He says, "I'm not happy about this." But he said, "Larry, I can tell you're very sincere in why you want to do this. That you've been doing this for 20 years, and you've got young kids, and it maybe will give you more time with your family. I get it. I'm going to live with it. But, Mr. McReynolds, you and I have a contract." I went, "Oh, boy, this all." And Fox had already told everybody, when you come to us, you come clean.
Yeah,
We're not buying nobody out of no contracts or negotiating. You come to us, you better be squeaky clean. He said, "But we have a contract." And I'm thinking, boy, this ought to be good. And in my mind, I'm thinking back to that meeting about 8 months prior where I was kind of cocky and arrogant and said, "Look, you've put me with Skinner. You're going to pay me this and this and this." And they went with it. I said, "Well, okay." He said, "No, there's other ways of working stuff out." He said, 2 things. You are in charge of finding your replacement. He said, "And what it's going to cost you." And I'm thinking, oh boy, here we go. He said, "No." He said, "As you know, we leave Thursday to head to Indy. As tradition goes, both race teams, we go out together and have dinner Thursday night when we land. We go to St. Elmo's." He said, "Here's how we're going to work this deal out. As always, when we go there, RCR will buy the food, you buy the wine, and we'll call this deal even." I couldn't get out of that damn office fast enough. And you know what? Once we got there, he didn't even make me buy the wine. That's just
Did he not?
That's just the kind of person Richard Childress is.